breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Warmer for the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, mid-major Matt Josephs. We're going to chat with him about what he's all seen here in the first 2 weeks of the MLB season, how he does gauge some of these props when you do have colder temperatures like we are seeing out there in the Northeast and just generally out there in the Midwest part of the country as well. Additionally, we're going to dive into a few games that we've got for Wednesday as well in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Wednesday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you'll have one or two ways to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via the 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, we had a fun day of baseball on Tuesday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Guardians get the job done by kind of 2-1 for the Royals. Royals had just one hit in this game, and Carter Jensen did not oversleep his alarm for this early game, and they are glad that he did not. He gets his third home run of the campaign for Cleveland. Giving up that home run was Gavin Williams, who did walk 5, but 5 2/3 innings allows just that one hit and one run. From there, Tim Herron, and out of the bullpen squirrels, Eric Zabrowski, Sean Armstrong, and Keith Smith all into scoreless inning. Noah Cameron gives up just one run in 5 2/3 innings. They give up 6 hits for the Guardians. They leave 9 men on, but they get to John Schreiber in the 9th inning as it was Brian Rocchio's RBI single that ended it. Schreiber gets it out of the bullpen, gives up that winning run. Daniel Lynch 4 outs out the bullpen squirrels, and Nick Mears was able to get you a scoreless inning as well. Been a pretty solid start to the season for these guys as well. How about the New York Mets being able to get the job done as they were able to win by a count of 4-3 over the Arizona Diamondbacks? Mets now 7-4, despite the fact that Juan Soto currently out of the fold for Freddie Peralta. Did walk 3, gave up 3 runs in 4 2/3 innings, but bullpen at his back. Luis Garcia 2 scoreless innings, Brooks Raley, Devin Williams, Luke Weaver all on the scoreless inning, Oscar Brazoban, and out of the bullpen scoreless end for the Diamondbacks. They leave 12 men on base in this game. Zach Gallen, he fills it up with 2 runs, one of which was earned, given up in 5 innings. From there, Ryan Thompson, Juan Mario, both on the scoreless inning. Jonathan Loaisiga gives up a run in an inning. Kevin Ginkel, a scoreless inning, and then Paul Sewald allows the unearned run in the 10th as you had Ron Mercio, hopefully I said that correct. He was able to get the job done with an RBI single to be able to end the game for the Baltimore Orioles. They get to the White Sox bullpen, 4-2. They take on the White Sox. If you, like me, had the over in this game, Orioles left 14 men on base, and the White Sox left 7 men on base. That was rough. As Shane Smith, he got 8 strikeouts in 3 2/3 innings, allows 1 hit, but walked 5, jacked up his pitch count to 99. From there, Sean Newcomb gives up a run in 1 1/3 innings. Jordan Leisurely gives you a scoreless inning, but Jordan Hicks 1 1/3 innings allows 2 runs, and Chris Murphy inherited some runners. He gives up a home run to Gunnar Henderson, 4th of the campaign, as he's on the hook for 1 run in 2/3 of an inning. Did have Brian Hudson give you a scoreless inning, but White Sox bullpen continues to be an issue, and Trevor Rogers, he was in the neighborhood for giving up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings. Yadier Cano, don't you know that he and Ryan Helsley both lent a scoreless inning. Grant Wolfram and Anthony Nunez combined for a scoreless inning for the Orioles to be able to get the job done there for a much-needed win. A much-needed win for these guys as well. How about a 9-2 win for the Cubs, who are going to be without Cade Horton for the rest of the season? That was bad news, but for the Rays, Drew Rasmussen was supposed to get the start here. Mason Engler got the surprise start as Rasmussen, I think his wife went into labor or something, so congratulations to him, but 4 runs, 3 of which were given up in 3 2/3 innings. Cole Souza from there, 2 1/3 innings. He allows a run, and then Yandris Gomez, 4 runs allowed in 3 innings, including a pair of bombs. Pico Armstrong, first home run of the season. Moises Ballesteros is first, and for Javier Assad, a really nice start. 5 2/3 innings scoreless. Hobie Milner, 4 outside the bullpen scoreless. Phil Matone is not looking too trustworthy in the bullpen. 2 runs allowed in 2/3 of an inning, but Caleb Theobar and out of the bullpen scoreless. Jacob Webb a scoreless inning, so they find a way to persevere, get the job done. So do the Pittsburgh Pirates. 7-1. They take down the Padres as they're off to a nice 7-4 start. Paul Skeens, after that rough first start of the season, he's back online. Gives up a run over the course of 6 1/3 innings. Xander Bogaerts did take him deep. First home run of the campaign for him. That's all that the Padres would get, though. Gregory Soto, you don't mess with the Yohan Ramirez. Both lend a scoreless inning. Isaac Madsen Jansen, pair of outside the bullpen squirrels. Nick Pivetta, not a bad start here. 2 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings. Bullpen unraveled, though, as you had Brad Dougley Ramirez along with Wendy Peralta. Linda squirrels inning. Audrey Motajon, 5 runs, 4 of which weren't given up in a third of an inning. If you had the under in this game, man, that was rough. Ron Marinaccio was able to give you a pair of outside the bullpen squirrels, but for the Pirates, 4 of 9 with men in scoring position to get the job done there. I can tell you, I had the Miami Marlins, and this one was a rough one as they fall to the Cincinnati Reds 6-3 the final, as the Reds are now 8-3 to start the season, 5-0 away from home. Reds were down 2-0 going into the 9th inning after Sandy Alcantara had thrown 8 shutout innings. He was trying to go for a complete game, puts a few men on base, and then Anthony Bender, he's unable to hold them on. He had a wild pitch. He goes 2/3 of an inning. He doesn't get charged for those runs. They go to Alcantara, but what really was a letdown there, and then Calvin Fauché in the 10th inning, 4 runs, 3 of which were earned in a third of an inning before John King tried to be the king. He got a pair of outs out the bullpen. For Andrew Abbott, he gives up 2 runs over the course of 5 1/3 innings. From there, Pierce Johnson, pair of outs out the bullpen squirrels. Emilio Pagan, a scoreless inning. 2 scoreless innings out of Jose Franco, and then in the 10th inning, you did have a unearned run given up by Graham Ashcraft, but for the Miami Marlins, they strand 10 men on base. They go just 2 of 11 with men in scoring position, so they found a way to be able to yak that game away. And for the Boston Red Sox, they do not yak things away. They find a way to persevere against the Milwaukee Brewers, this by a count of 3-2, as the Miz, Jacob Mizorowski, 10 punch-outs in 5 1/3 innings, did walk 4, and he gives up 3 runs, but overall, relatively solid start there. DL Turner Paul, 2 1/3 innings scoreless. The Woodford, Jake Woodford, and out of the bullpen scoreless, and Garrett Crochet gives up 2 runs in 6 1/3 innings. Zach Kelly, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. Garrett Whitlock, Aroldis Chapman, they both ended scoreless settings. So the Red Sox, they get just their 3rd win of the season, but they do find a way to persevere, get the job done out there. Also being able to get the job done, the LA Dodgers, 4-1. They're able to take down the Toronto Blue Jays as Yoshinobu Yamamoto, a good start here. 1 run allowed in 6 innings. Alex Vesia, Blake Trinan, both on a scoreless setting, and with Diaz, he's able to clean things up in the 9th. And for Kevin Gausman, gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 1/3 innings. Mason Fluharty, Louis Varland, both give you far outside the bullpen scoreless. Jeff Hoffman, he gives up an unearned run in an inning. He was hurt by a error out there in the field. As for the Toronto Blue Jays, right now they're dealing with Alejandro Kirk dealing with an injury. Brandon Valenzuela got the start at the catcher spot. He had a little bit of an error that hurt them, so that was not necessarily great for the Blue Jays, to say the least. And this was not great for the Philadelphia Phillies as they get completely blanked 6-0 by the San Francisco Giants. Robbie Reyes had hit Parade to a great start. He goes 6 2/3 innings scoreless for Christopher Sanchez. 11 hits, allowed 4 runs, 2 of which were earned. He was hurt by a pair of errors out there in the field over the course of his 5 innings. Zach Pop, Tanner Banks had things popping for a scoreless inning apiece, and Orion Kirkering, 2 unearned runs as there was a pair of errors for the Philadelphia Phillies in this game. And for a Giants team that has been a little bit rough at the plate this far this season, 5 of 16 with men in scoring position. For the Houston Astros, they've been solid on offense, not so great with their pitching thus far, and they just did not have a lot of offense on Tuesday. 5-1, the Rockies get the job done. Kyle Freeland allows just 1 solo home run over the course of 6 1/3 innings. Christian Walker gets his 3rd home run in the campaign. Antonio Senzatella is now coming out of the bullpen. 2 2/3 innings scoreless. He's been solid as a reliever. And Mike Burrows, he gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 1/3 innings. At Coors, that's honestly not too bad, as taking him deep, Willie Castro, 1st home run in the campaign. And then Mickey Moniak out of Kaiwei Tang, he gets his 3rd home run in the campaign. For Tang, gives up that home run over the course of 2/3 of an inning. Steven Okert allows a run in an inning. And Christian Roa go for a scoreless inning as well, but not a lot of offense doing for the Astros. Not a lot doing for the Seattle Mariners either. 3-2, the Texas Rangers get the job done. Nathan Eovaldi goes 6 innings, gives up 2 runs. He does allow a home run to Brandon Donovan in the 1st inning, 3rd home run in the campaign. Settles down from there. Jacob Latz gives you 2 scoreless innings. Jacob Junis, a scoreless inning, and George Kirby pitched all 8 innings here for Seattle. Does give up 3 runs, including a home run to Kyle Higashioka, 1st of the campaign, but for the Rangers, they only left 1 man on base in this game as well. So that was a fun one, and it was fun for the Minnesota Twins as they got to Tariq Skubal 4-2. They were able to take down the Detroit Tigers. Skubal's had some issues with the Twins in the past. 4 runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings. Tyler Olton, 4 outside the bullpen scoreless. Connor Siebold, 2 scoreless innings, and Taj Bradley was not playing games. He did not look like Milton in this game. 10 punch-outs, 1 run allowed in 6 1/3 innings. Did have Eric Orze give up a run in 2/3 of an inning, but you had Taylor Rogers give you a scoreless inning. Cole Sands, Justin Topa, they combined for 3 outside the bullpen scoreless, and for the Tigers, they strand 12 men on base. So that that was not necessarily savory for them. This was savory for the Yankees, so 5-3. They're able to take down the Athletics. As for the Athletics, a nice start here from Aaron Savali. He gives up a home run over the course of 5 innings of work as Ahmed Rosario gets his first home run in the campaign, and then you get home run number 2 off of the former Yankee Mark Leiter Jr. He gets lighted up because Justin Cerner had 2 scoreless innings. Leiter 4 runs allowed in 2/3 of an inning, including one of those bombs. Joel Kuno from there gives you an out of the bullpen scoreless. And for Cam Schiller, 7 punch-outs in 5 innings, does allow 3 runs, but the bullpen had his back. Jake Bird, Brent Hendrick, they combined for 1 2/3 innings scoreless. Fernando Cruz, 4 outside the bullpen scoreless. David Bednar, he does not poop the Bednar. He's able to give you a scoreless inning, but the Washington Nationals, they do poop the bed. They lose to the St. Louis Cardinals by a count of 7-6. As for the Cardinals, they were trailing in this game by a count of 5-2. They blew a 3-run lead, as a matter of fact, in the game on Monday, but they storm back here. Matthew Liberatore gives up 4 runs over the course of 5 innings, including a home run. James Wood does give you a good Wood, home run number 4 of the campaign, and newly acquired Curtis Mead was able to get his first home run of the campaign, but bullpen had his back from there. Did have George Soriano supplied 2 scoreless innings. Gordon Garcefo was able to come in for 2 innings. He allows a run along the way. Riley O'Brien does give up an unearned run in the 10th inning, but for the Washington Nationals bullpen, all sorts of disaster. Cade Cavalli, not bad in this one. 2 runs, one of which was earned in 4 2/3 innings. From there, Paxton Schultz, a scoreless inning. PJ Poulin allows a solo run in 1 1/3 innings as he was taken deep by Jordan Walker, 4th home run in the campaign, and then Nate Church off of Gus Varland, his first of the campaign. Varland gives up 2 runs in his inning of work. Clayton Beater, a scoreless inning, and then Cole Henry, 2 runs, one of which was earned, allowed in the 10th inning, so that was not tremendous for him, to say the least, but this was pretty tremendous for the Atlanta Braves. They do a nice job taking it to the LA Angels, currently doing this in the bottom of the 9th inning. They're up by a count of 7-2 with 2 outs left to get for Raciel Iglesias. He's currently on to try to close this thing out as Reynaldo Lopez gives up 2 runs in 4 2/3 innings. They were both unearned. There were a pair of errors out there in the field, but bullpen has had his back from there. Tyler Kinley, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless along Dylan Lee. Robert Suarez, Aaron Bummer, they both come in for a combined 4 outside the bullpen scoreless. Iglesias on to close out this game, and Yusei Kikuchi, I say he gave up 4 runs over the course of 5 innings before Sean Anderson. He gives up 3 runs in 3 innings, including a home run to Ozzie Albies, 3rd home run in the campaign. Mitch Ferris, he comes into the game. He gives up nothing in his inning of work, but still damage by then. It certainly had been done, and if you're taking a look at trend-wise what we're getting in baseball right now, it has been a very interesting last 7 days in baseball. We've had a lot of colder temperatures, but we have been having a lot of overs. 49 overs to 37 unders if you count that Atlanta Braves game, so over 56.5% of games going over the total, assuming that the Braves get the job done. Favorites just 44 and 44 on the money line, so they've really had some struggles with 8 of them not being able to cover the run line. Overall for the season, favorites are sliding at about 55.6%, 90 and 71 on the money line, and overall for the season, we've had 82 overs, 77 unders, and a few pushes along the way, so about 51% of games going over the total. That's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's where we're all getting trend-wise. Coming next, let's chat it up with our good friend Mid-Major Matt right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
We're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Matt Josephs aboard, better known as Mid-Major Matt. He does great work over at ESPN Radio in Richmond with the show Border to Border. I know that he's doing a great job with the Prop Queen website, the Prop Queen app as well, and I know that he's taking a look at a little bit of everything, getting stuff for the upcoming college football and college basketball seasons, which very tragic that that's come to an end, but does such a great job on the baseball prop front and so much more. You're able to follow him on Twitter/X at Mid-Major Matt altogether. And Matt, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for, as always, having me on the show.
Absolutely. And Matt, we are now through about 2 weeks of the season, and have you had any takeaways from the start of the season? Because obviously it's very early, and you don't want to have anything be an end-all be-all after less than 12 games for a lot of these scenes, but has there been anything that has really stood out to you thus far?
Well, I'll say this, the Royals are still the high-contact team they have always been the past couple of years. Gavin Williams was the first right-handed pitcher to go over his K-prop, to go over it against the Royals Orioles this season. So Kansas City, while their offense may be very hot and cold at times, is very contact driven. And so certainly that is something I've kind of noticed so far. And I don't think the Red Sox are as bad as they've been so far. I think the Blue Jays might have a little bit of a World Series hangover so far. But when you look at these first 10, 11 games or so, you kind of look at it somewhat in a vacuum because it's colder weather and scheduling spots and still some pitchers that are ramping up their pitch counts and stuff like that. So I see some things, but I'm also not necessarily going to make some big sweeping judgments or anything like that.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that it's going to be interesting to see what we get moving forward, especially on Wednesday, where out there in the northeast part of the country, just the northern part of the country in general, we are seeing colder temperatures. And how much of an impact does that have with regards to your handicapping and the way that you play some of these props? Because we noticed in the day games that we got on Tuesday, a lot of low scoring games out there in the northern part of the country.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, especially if I like the starting pitchers, I'll look at a first 3 or a first 5 under, especially if the wind's blowing in. One of the wagers I hit on Tuesday was the first 5 under in the Kansas City-Cleveland game because the weather was just in a perfect scenario for me to have not a lot of scoring. Kansas City had struggled with Williams in his career. Cameron's been pretty good so far as well, so that was something I hit. So, weather is very important, especially when it comes to wind and especially when it comes to cold. No hitter wants to hit in the cold. And so you look at some first 5 unders. That way you don't have to worry about bullpens and things like that.
Yep, absolutely. And how much do you think that there's a little bit more of an emphasis for you, even more than in the past, on the first 5s and the first 3s? Because it's one thing that I've noticed as far this season, it feels like across the board, a lot of these bullpens have been really, really bad. Even a team that typically has a trustworthy bullpen, like, for example, the Tampa Bay Rays, they've been awful this year. And it just feels like bullpen pitching is way down from where it has been in the past.
Yeah, it's one of those things where there's only so many good ones and there's only so many good bullpen arms. And you look at the teams and we're still not stretching starters out yet. We're not seeing them go 6, 7, 8 innings. Certain ones are, but there's some managers that are still taking it easy with some of their starting pitchers. So we're seeing some more bullpen usage here. I've always been a guy that kind of looks at the first 5s and the first 3s, because I've done this show a while. I much rather go with the knowns than the unknowns. Who's not going to pitch maybe a third straight game or something like that. So you kind of know who to stay away from. But we know who the starting pitcher is going to be. We know they're probably going to go 5. So why not look at a first 3 or a first 5 as opposed to just kind of diving into a bullpen and kind of guessing who's coming out of that door?
Yep, and when it comes to these bullpens, man, just such a roll of the dice with a lot of these teams in general, especially this time of year, as we do have Matt Josephs, aka Major Matt, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And I do think that it's going to be interesting to see what we get in the NL East as well. I know that you cover the Philadelphia Phillies quite a bit. They've had a nice little bit of bounce back here against a Giants team that looks like it may not be a great season for them, but how do you gauge this division with the Nationals currently dead last, but even they've shown a little bit of fight? The Atlanta Braves look a little bit closer to that offense that we saw a few years ago. The Marlins look resurgent, and for the New York Mets, even without Juan Soto, they've been able to get the job done thus far this season as well.
Look, I'm still kind of loyal to Atlanta here. If they can, continue to kind of be like this once they get healthy in the rotation, I think they're going to be a team that's going to be really tough to kind of deal with because they have so many pitchers who are hurt right now. And if the guys that are in the rotation can continue to kind of just, do what they can until these other guys return, I think Atlanta's offense is really good. You mentioned the Mets. They're all over the place. I've never been really a Freddie Peralta guy, and I know he's kind of the ace, but he's doing the best he can. I'm more of a McLean guy. I think he's going to eventually be the ace of that team. And then, of course, my Phillies, they're going to be hot and cold. There's going to be stretches for 2 weeks where you play their team total overs. They're hitting the ball, and then there's going to be times where they go to Colorado and they lose 3-0 to Sagano and a bunch of bullpen arms. That's just what the Phillies are. I'll be interested to see how Andrew Painter progresses. Didn't pitch well in San Francisco, but this is a lineup that seems to be hot and cold together. There doesn't seem to be one hitter that's really good and the rest of the guys are bad. It's all or nothing in both directions. So you kind of have to watch them because they are really, really streaky.
Yep, they certainly have been streaky to begin the season, and there have been a lot of teams in general that have had their ups and downs thus far this season. As Matt Josephs, aka Major Matt, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, and I think that it is going to be really interesting to see what we get on Wednesday because it's a very loaded card. We've got a lot of day games, and you mentioned it with the Royals. They're doing a great job in terms of putting bat to ball, not necessarily hitting home runs, but putting bat to ball. And we've got Cole Ragans versus Joey Cantillo in this one with the Cleveland Guardians, a slim underdog in a total of 7.5. How do you look at this one with Cole Ragans having that high ERA last year, but his fielding dependent and his strikeout numbers, they were certainly there. And a guy in Joey Cantillo, I feel like has just been really undervalued.
Yeah, and the Royals have only seen 2 left-handers so far this season, had 6 strikeouts against them. Now, that's not me saying I'm going to run out and take the over for Cantillo's strikeouts, whatever that might be, but they've had a little bit of an issue so far with the 2 lefties that they've seen. And, of course, on the Cleveland side of things, it's funny, this kind of illustrates the streaky nature of strikeout props. They go over their first 4 strikeout props, and then they go under their next 7 until Tuesday when they just barely went over against Cameron. I wonder how much, having the lefties back-to-back is a disservice. Now, look, they have some different arsenals, to say the least, but like how much is it where you should have, it go lefty, righty, or whatever like that. Like, that's something to kind of watch out for, especially in these series where both these guys go. And of course, you could see Bubic as well. That's 3 lefties in this rotation. You kind of try and space them out a little bit. I think that would be a little bit more beneficial.
Yep, exactly. And I do think that it's going to be a lot of fun to take a look at these 2 teams moving forward, as I think that the Central is going to be a really interesting race, especially with the Tigers, who they're going to be taking on the Twins with Framber Valdez on the mound. Now, I was highlighting this towards back half of the season. Framber Valdez in his last 10 starts with the Astros was terrible. First 2 starts here with the Tigers has been rock solid. How do you take a look at a guy like this who ended the 2025 season so bad, but he's got a pretty good track record, and here in the first 2 starts of the season, he's looked like the Framber Valdez that we all know and love.
Well, obviously, when you talk about any game in Minnesota, what's the temperature? I mean, how cold is it? Because this is a place where it's going to be very cold potentially, and there's going to be some wind involved, and maybe that, keeps the run scoring down. Maybe you look at early. Look, I'm not an Ober guy, so I would potentially maybe look at Detroit's first 5 or something like that, because I'm just not a Bailey Ober guy. He seems very diminished from what he used to be. This is one of those things where, as you just mentioned, you have to check the weather forecast every day before you go and put in your card, because I think, especially Minnesota, we know how cold it gets in Minnesota. And, what was the Cleveland game was moved up a bit so they could stay out of the cold on Tuesday. So, yeah, this is one of those things where I'm going to be waiting for the weather, but I'm probably going to lean towards Detroit in the first 5. That offense is just so good, especially against they're going to beat up on bad pitching.
Yep, they certainly are, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to take a look at that team moving forward, because for the Tigers, they've got a really consistent lineup, in my opinion. You don't necessarily have one easy out in that lineup, so I do think that they're going to be able to present a lot of value, as well as Matt Josephs, aka Mid-Major Matt, is joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And how do you take a look at some of these struggling teams? Like right now, we're doing this as we don't know how the Red Sox wrapped up their game against the Brewers on Tuesday, but as we're doing this, it's 0-0 in the 6th inning. That offense, we know that it's one of the better ones in all of baseball when it's humming, but right now they're ice cold. How do you gauge sort of the day-to-day with a team like that just hasn't been able to get out of its own way to begin the season?
Yeah, and there's a lot of strikeouts in that lineup. We saw Mizorowski with a bunch so far. This is a team that's been agony so far for K-prop bettors. 3 last batter strikeouts to have unders go over. So if you have the overs, that's great. If you have the unders, that's been miserable so far for Boston. So anything so far with them, I'm looking at K-prop overs. Granted, this is one of those teams where, when you have the end of a series and you know that they're traveling the next day, there might be some guys who sit. So this is always one of those things where you should pay attention where in the series we are, and certainly what's happening after this series. Is there a day off? Is there travel afterwards? Because that will affect, what bench guys could play. Could we see the backup catcher? Could we see a backup infielder of sorts? But yeah, this is the final game of a 3-game series, and this is a Boston team that, to me, strikes out a lot so far this season. So I'm certainly potentially looking at K-prop overs. Even against the lesser pitchers, they've made some very poor pitchers look very good so far this season.
Yep, they certainly have. And is there anything else that you might be taking a look at for Wednesday, as we've got all 30 teams in action? So no shortage of action for us. We've got some day games, we've got some night games, but just anything in particular standing out to you?
Well, I mean, obviously, Javier in Coors Field, that has a recipe for disaster written all over. I mean, Javier has not been himself, and even though it's Coors Field, and even though this Rockies lineup isn't great, it's still Coors Field, and so I don't know how I'm going to play that game. And with Lorenzen, there could be a lot of runs, but this is an afternoon game. I'd want to make sure what the lineup looks like before I put anything in, but there could be a lot of runs. We could see one of those 12-8 type of games that we see in Coors Field. And speaking of 12-8 type of games, hey, Miles Michaelis is pitching for Washington, and I'm surprised he still has a rotation spot. Like, let's be honest here. He has not been very good. And how many of those Cardinals hitters that had to stand behind him and watch him get, destroyed as the starting pitcher for St. Louis, how many of them want to go and get some at-bats against him? Greavy's been one of my guys, and so that's something I've been, he's my new Cal Quantrill. Last time he pitched, I forgot. I didn't look at that card, and therefore he went under his outs prop, so therefore he knew that I didn't look. I'll be interested to see what number it is. If it's like a 15.5, depending on the weather, once again, like this Nats lineup, you can go through this Nats lineup and have a little bit of success. So I'll be looking at my guy McGreevy's outs over, depending on the weather and depending on what the number is. And then, of course, Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola has been okay so far. He's given up his home runs, which is what Aaron Nola does. It's an afternoon game in San Francisco, so you got to watch for lineups and stuff like that. But Aaron Nola is always a lot of fun to try and handicap because when he's on, he's really good. But lately, he has not been on.
Yeah, he has not been. And to your point about Miles Michaelis, he is becoming one of my favorite fades. Like, that guy just got absolutely tattooed in his first two starts of the season. I don't think it's going to be getting any better for him moving forward. We had Patrick Corbin Day with the Washington Nationals many, many years ago, and now he has taken on that mantle. And I know you, Matt, are doing such an amazing job looking at this great sport of baseball. You do a great job on so many different fronts. So let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter. Certainly love answering questions, player prop related, first three, first five, first sevens, the different markets that are out there, because I feel like there are some advantages to looking at everything. I don't think the books can hit every single market correct. So I'm certainly here to answer questions. And of course, I do stuff with Ariel for the Prop Queen website and my radio show as well. But, we all have the same goal. We all want to beat the books. A little cold right now, but of course, it's like a 300-day season, it feels like. And so there's going to be some rough patches and there's going to be some good ones. So we'll try and turn it around a little bit. But as always, a lot of fun to be on the podcast and looking forward to seeing what we get on Wednesday.
Absolutely. It is going to be a lot of fun. And Matt, he does such a great job taking a look at the sport of baseball all throughout the season. Every single time he joins me, lends such great insights, and did so once again today. So a big thanks to Matt for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Coming next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Wednesday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Matt Josephs, aka Mid-Major Matt. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So big thanks to Matt for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Wednesday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at Junit_81. We are going to be going in the Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first in time order, then the American League games. Any interleague games, those will be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. One exception is Diamondbacks versus Mets might be a little bit out of order since they slid the time up on that one. So let's get things started. 9:51, 9:52 on the card. It is the Slam Diego Padres. They are going to be on the road facing off against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Mitch Keller is on the bump for the Buccos, and Michael King hopes to be the king for the Padres. And Padres do find themselves as a slim underdog here, anywhere between -105 to -110, -105 to -115. That number on the Pirates total is a 7.5. The over and under are anywhere between -105 to a -115, and set the Padres at a -143. So I'm going to be willing to dive in on that money line for Michael King. Did have a little bit of a shaky year last year. 1.5 home runs, 3.1 walks allowed per 9 innings, while posting up about a 3.44 ERA. Was really dealing with injuries. Season before was supplying closer to a 2.95 ERA, and I think that he returns a little bit more to the Michael King that we all know and love this season. Plus, he's backed up by a bullpen that last year was number one in all baseball in terms of ERA. Do recognize that they're dealing with Jason Adam and Yuki Matsui currently being on the injured list, but all in all, these guys are able to do a solid job in terms of holding down the fort. And when it comes to this lineup, it is pretty solid. You do have Ramon Laureano, who's able to do a solid job finding a way on base. Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr. These guys are always good for 25 plus home runs and over a 340 on base. Freddie Fermin should be able to help figure out the catcher spot as well. A little bit of shaky start to the season, but I'm sure that he's going to pick it up. Xander Bogarts has been a waste of money, and Gavin Sheets is a little bit up and down, but like what these guys bring to the table. And for the Pirates last year, they were last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, but they do look much improved this year. Still have some question marks with someone like a Nick Yorkie, but still he's been able to have himself a relatively nice start to the season. Catcher spot has been rough with Henry Davis never really panning out, and Connor Griffin, the man that they paid a bunch of money to, a little bit of a slow start. You know that he's going to find it at the big league level. Love the fact that they picked up Ryan O'Hearn, 350 plus on base with Padres and the Orioles last season. Good functional power. Brandon Lau got loud with over 25 home runs last year for the Rays. Pirates, though, do have a very shaky bullpen. When you've got Gregory Soto as your closer, that's not great now. Dennis Santana is sub 250 ERA last season, and Justin Lawrence was really good in a pretty small sample size last season as well. So those guys, I do like what they bring to the table, but Hunter Barco has been rough. Yohan Ramirez, no real consistency there. And for Mitch Keller, he's been incredibly consistent over the last few seasons, posting up a 4.21, 4.25, and 4.19 ERA over the last 3 seasons, respectively. Career low 7.7 strikeouts per 9 innings. So last year really doesn't give up too much of the deep ball, but he does have the propensity to give up about 3 or so walks per 9 innings. I do think that the Padres get to him and get the job done. Set the Padres at a minus 143, so I do like the money line. Set my total at 7.7, so at the 7.5, also in on the over. 953, 954. The San Francisco Giants play host to the Philadelphia Phillies. Aaron Nola looks to be super for the Phils, and Tyler Mahle is on the bump for the Giants. And the Giants are between plus 115 to plus 108 underdogs, and between minus 126 to minus 140. That number on the Phillies, but a total of 8 overs between minus 115 to a minus 120. Unders between even and minus 105. And for Mahle and the San Francisco Giants, I did set them at the minus 121 favorite, so I do like them on the money line. Now for Tyler Mahle, it was a little bit of a small sample size last year, but did a very good job in terms of keeping the ball in the yard while he was with the Texas Rangers, giving up just a half home run per 9 innings. Now, not much of a swing and miss guy, 6.9 strikeouts per 9 innings last year, 2.18 ERA, 3.37 fielding independent. He's had a little bit of a rough go of it here in the first few starts of the season with 7 runs allowed, but pitching out there in San Francisco, I think is going to be his friend. And for Aaron Nola, things just completely fell off the rails from last season. He was giving up about 1.7 home runs per 9 innings, 6.01 ERA, so have to have major question marks there. Now, I love Yohan Duran in the bullpen for the Philadelphia Phillies, but Jose Alvarado, ever since that drug suspension, feels like he just has not been the same guy ever since then. Tanner Banks can be a little bit up and down in that bullpen. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, they did have a nice outburst with their offense on Monday, but I mean, even in the back half of that series against the Rockies, they had a little bit of a tough time getting things going. Kyle Schwarber, 3 home runs, but it's hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. It's been a rough start to the season for Bryce Harper. Omando Sosa's not really giving you too much of anything whatsoever. I will say Justin Crawford doing a nice job in terms of moving line along Trey Turner, and then flip side for the San Francisco Giants, it's been a rough season for Matt Chapman. Looks like things might be getting back online for him a little bit more, but you're going to need to get more out of the outfield, as Eloy Ramos is right now hitting right around about a 200. You haven't been able to get a lot out of a lot of the other ancillary guys in that outfield. They pick up Harrison Bader in the offseason. That's not worked out to this point. Jungle Lee has been up and down. Luis Ariz, though, he's able to hit for about a 300. Willie Adames just does not move the line, but he does give you good functional power. And Rafael Devers has not lived up to that contract quite yet. And while the Giants did lose many bullpen pieces at the trade deadline last season, they still were 4th in terms of bullpen ERA last season. Keaton Wynn, Eric Miller have had rough starts to the season after they were good last year. Ryan Walker did have a little bit north of a 4 ERA last season, but I think that he's going to be able to pick it up a little bit. Ryan Barucki, I don't know about him, but Caleb Killian, I do think has a little bit of upside coming over from the Cubs, and I do think that the Giants do a solid job here of getting to Aaron Nola. So I did make the Giants a minus 121 favorite, like them on the money line. Made this total a 7.7. Do think that with just the pitcher-friendly ballpark in this ordeal that you do get a lower scoring game. So like the under and the money line here of San Francisco, 955, 956. It's the St. Louis Cardinals on the road against the Washington Nationals. Miles Michaelis goes for Washington, and Michael McGreevy is on the bump for St. Louis. St. Louis does find themselves between minus 122 to minus 132 favorites, between plus 102 to plus 112. That number on Washington, 8.5 is the total, over and under anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115. And for the Cardinals, I set them at a minus 145. I like them here on the money line. They know exactly what Miles Michaelis is going to be throwing, and Miles Michaelis really does not do a great job in terms of being able to keep you off balance or anything like that. I mean, he just got absolutely tattooed last year, posting up an ERA that was in that neighborhood about a 484 fielding, depending, it was more around a 503. I mean, he only gave up 2.1 walks per 9 innings, but 1.7 home runs per 9 innings, and he has just gotten shelled here to start the season. He's given up 5 home runs and 15 earned runs and 9 1/3 innings in his first 2 starts of the season. That's not great, to say the least. And for Michael McGreevy, he's not a guy that's going to be going out there getting you a whole bunch of strikeouts as well. Only 5.5 strikeouts per 9 innings last year, but also fewer than 2 walks per 9 innings. Does a better job keeping the ball in the yard with only about 1.1 home runs allowed per 9 innings. He does go up against a Washington Nationals lineup that has actually been relatively solid to start the year. This despite the fact that James Wood entered into yesterday, hitting below the middle line of 200. He was their main man last year, hitting for 30-plus home runs. Joey Weimer's hitting above a 400, so he's been solid. Some of these guys like Dallin Lyle, Brady House that they're hoping are going to develop, they have been developing. Keibert Ruiz just has not really been able to do so. He was a big part of one of those Dodgers trades a few seasons ago. But all in all, the lineup has been looking relatively solid, and for the Cardinals, they've been able to put runs up on the board. Victor Scott is not going to give you power, but he's hitting above a 270. You've got Nolan Gorman, who does hit for power, but really hits for no average whatsoever. Jordan Walker seems to be really starting to find it, hitting for over a 350 on base. And then Alec Burleson last year, good functional power, over a 340 on base. Ivan Rare is a guy that's able to give you a 340 plus on base as well, though. Both these bullpens are rough. Last year, the Nationals were dead last in the big leagues in terms of bullpen area, while the Cardinals were an above-average bullpen. Jojo Romero has been great. He's been able to not give up a run really all season long, but Ryan Stanek, Matt Svanson, George Soriano, these guys have been very untrustworthy to begin the season, but I trust in them quite a bit more than this Washington Nationals bullpen, where got the likes of Cole Henry, Clayton Beaters, Perez, who all posted up a ERA above a 4 last season. PJ Poulin, I actually think, is relatively solid in the bullpen. They pick up Paxton Schultz, who was over with the Blue Jays last season, so it's very much a ragtag bullpen. I do like the over. I did set my total at 8.8, and for the Cardinals, we'll lay up to a minus 145 on that money line. 957, 958 on the card. It's the Reds. Yes, we're on to Cincinnati. They're onto the road. They're facing off against the Miami Marlins as Uri Perez is on the bump for the Marlins, and you've got Mr. Brady Singer open to have the Marlins singing the blues for Cincinnati, and between minus 124 to minus 136. That number on Miami between plus 106 to plus 115 for the Reds. 7.5 is the total. Over and under anywhere between pretty much even money to minus 120, and I made a total of a 7.2, so I do like the under. For Brady Singer, he had a much better second half of the season last year rather than the first half. Last year, overall, posted up a 4.03 ERA, but they dropped him more like a 3.62 with less than 3 walks per 9 innings after the All-Star break. Has given up 5 runs in 9 innings in his first 2 starts here to begin the season, but I think that he's going to be fine. He goes up against a Miami Marlins team that has been able to do a solid job in terms of moving the line, and you do have Liam Hicks, who's got 3 home runs to begin the season, but not necessarily too much power, especially with Kyle Stowers currently on the injured list. I will say Xavier Edwards is right now hitting above a 4. He's been great. Otto Lopez was one of those candidates to have some positivity after last season. He's been hitting above a 300. Jacob Murphy, Austin Slater out there in the outfield have been rough, along with Roberto Hernandez. I think these guys pick it up. And for the Reds, this team has been a little bit up and down with their lineup as well. Sal Stewart is hitting well above a 300. Ellie De La Cruz, he's giving you a trio of bombs. He's moving line. Stewart and De La Cruz were like the lone 2 guys in the starting lineup yesterday that were hitting above a 225, though. Matt McLean has been inconsistent. Spencer Steers up and down. Navali Marte, Gabriel Hayes are off to rough starts to the season. And Eugenio Suarez is able to hit for great power, but he really doesn't hit for a lot of average. And when it comes to this Reds bullpen, it is quite suspect. You've got Emilio Pagan is a guy that I just don't really trust at the closer spot. Pierce Johnson was actually pretty solid last year with the Atlanta Braves. He was posting up an ERA right around about a 305, but he looks a little bit lost this season. Do like what you get out of Tony Santana along Graham Ashcraft, but it is a bullpen that's a little bit up and down. And for the Miami Marlins, they've been one of the best bullpens in all baseball to start the season. You've been able to have quite a few of these guys like Anthony Bender, Andrew Nardi, Calvin Fauché give you a sub 350 ERA dating back to the beginning part of last season. John King was a good pickup from the Cardinals. Now they do have Pete Fairbanks on the paternity list. Congratulations to him, but still plenty of depth here, especially for a guy in Uri Perez who was so much better at home rather than away from him last year. For Uri Perez, he threw a little bit over 43 innings at home last season. He gave up just 1 home run in those 43 plus innings. Meanwhile, when he was away from home, that's when things were really falling off the rails for him. Away from home, posted up a 5.33 ERA with darn near 2 home runs per 9 innings compared to a 2.93 ERA at home. So do think that Perez goes out there, dominates at home. Set by total 7.2, like the under. And for the Marlins, we'll lay up to a minus 137 on the money line. 959, 960. You've got the Diamondbacks on the road against the New York Mets as David Peterson, great name, is on the bump for the Metropolitans, and Ryan Nelson goes for Arizona. Arizona's between a plus 122 to a plus 125 underdog. between a minus 145 to minus 150. That number on the Mets, 7.5 to 8 is the total. On the 8, under is minus 120. The over is even. On the 7.5, over is minus 120, and the under is even. Set the Mets at a minus 153, so I'm going to be willing to lay the money line. Don't really want to go at the run line, as, I mean, for Ryan Nelson, he was pretty solid last year. He only gave up 1 home run, 2.5 walks per 9 innings. Well, he's not necessarily a guy that's going to get a whole bunch of swings and misses, only about 7.3, 7.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, but all in all, did like what I saw out of him with a 3.34 ERA. Meanwhile, David Peterson, 4.22 ERA, but a 3.48 fielding, dependent, giving up just 0.6 home runs per 9 innings last year. The team is no longer with Edwin Diaz, but they pick up Luke Weaver, Devin Williams, be able to shore up the back end of the bullpen. Oscar Brzobin is a pretty good long guy for this team. They did have to use up quite a bit of that bullpen yesterday because Freddie Peralta failed to go past 5 innings, but for the Mets, even though it's going to be super cold outside here in this Wednesday game, they do have quite a few guys they're able to match. Ori Polanco, 25-plus home runs with Seattle last year. Luis Robert is providing over a 450 on base. Already has a game-winning home run. To his credit, Mark Vientos and Jared Young are both hitting above a 350 right now. Francisco Lindor off to a rough start to the season, and Juan Soto being out, that does hurt this Mets team. That did have to be accounted for, but on the flip side for the Diamondbacks, you do have a team that ranks 4th in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, dating back to the beginning of the 2025 season, but Nolan Arenado looks a little bit washed. Carlos Santana's right now dealing with a little bit of an injury. Corbin Carroll looks good for 25-plus home runs, a 340 on base. I do like what Ilyarmo Vargas is able to do in terms of moving line, but they have to deal with a few injuries. Gabriel Moreno has been a little bit up and down to begin the season, though he's giving you right now about a 350 on base. Geraldo Perdomo really has been having a little bit cold start to the season, and for the Diamondbacks, it is very difficult to be able to trust in this bullpen with A.J. Puck still on the injured list. Ryan Thompson was pretty solid last year, but he dealt with injury. Really don't trust in Paul Sewald whatsoever. Taylor Clark, Jonathan Loaiza, I thought that these were pretty good pickups, but Juan Murillo has not necessarily been great, so it is an interesting circumstance. I do think that the cold weather is really going to, shall we say, suppress the offense in this game, especially with not having Juan Soto out there, so somebody told us 7.2 like the under, but for the Mets, willing to lay up to a minus 152 on this money line. 961, 962, it's the Royals on the road against the Cleveland Guardians, as Joey Cantillo is on the bump for the Cleveland Guardians, and you've got Mr. Cole Ragans on the bump for the Royals. Royals are between minus 118 to minus 126 favorites, minus 105 to plus 108. That number on Cleveland, 7.5 is the total, under is minus 120, and the over is even, and I made the Guardians minus 122 favorite. I do like them on the money line. For Cole Ragans, he was one of the most unlucky pitchers in all of baseball last year. He had a fielding independent of a 250. He was getting about 14 strikeouts per 9 innings while giving up a 1 home run per 9 innings, and posted up a 4.67 ERA. This year, he's just come out a little bit flat thus far. In his first 2 starts, has given up 3 home runs over the course of 10 innings, 5 walks in 10 innings. So, he hasn't been necessarily the guy that we saw from a season ago, and I really think that there's quite a bit of upside with Joey Cantillo, a guy that was starting out last season in the bullpen, became a starter. He was able to really thrive in that role, and for Cantillo, command is always a little bit of an issue. Last year, 4 walks per 9 innings, but was also getting 10.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, gave up less than a home run per 9, and you know that he's going to be backed up by a good bullpen. Last year, the Cleveland Guardians were 3rd in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, and I do think that they're going to once again be able to thrive this season. Now, they are currently dealing with Hunter Gaddis being out with a little bit of an injury, and Matthew Fessa, not necessarily a guy that I trust in too much, but Eric Sabrowski, Sean Armstrong, they're pretty rock solid in the bullpen. Did have to use up those guys yesterday, so you have to imagine that Kobe Allard might be utilized as a little bit more of a long guy, and he's been pretty good for the team. Meanwhile, for the Royals, Carlos Estevez remains out due to injury, so that hurts them quite a bit. They picked up Nick Mears in the offseason, but he got used up for 24 pitches yesterday, so he's probably not going to be available. Matt Strahm is a guy that was a sub-350 ERA guy with the Philadelphia Phillies last year, so do like his overall upside. And for the Royals, I think that they're going to be a little bit better with their offense this year than a season ago. Even though he overslept Carter Jensen, he's already been able to give you 3 home runs thus far, so he's been rock solid. But likes of Lane Thomas, Vinny Pasquantino, Salvador Perez, all in below the middle side of 200 to begin the season. It's really been Kyle Isbell who's been able to step up. He's hitting above a 400 right now. He's been able to give you some functional power. Bobby Witt Jr. has yet to hit a home run. You know that that's coming. He had 23 bombs and over at 370 on base last season. And then for the Cleveland Guardians, it's been all about what you've been able to get out of Chase Delauder, who's been able to supply 5 home runs already this far this season. Jose Ramirez is hitting just $133. You know that that's going to be going northward. Stephen Kwan at the top does a nice job. Move the line. It's the guys towards the bottom of the lineup. CJ Kayfis, Kyle Manzardo. Whenever he's out there, Austin Hedges, as he's actually hitting a 455, but very, very small sample size. Brian Rocchio, Bo Naylor. These guys had all last year hit a 230 or lower. What are you going to be able to get out of them? I think that that'll suppress offense in this game, but in the end, I do trust in Cantillo a little bit more than Bragg and set the Guardians at a -122, like the Guardians on the money line, and made my total a 7.3. So here are the 7.5, do like the under. 963, 964 on the card. The Baltimore Orioles are on the road against the Chicago White Sox. Sean Burke is on the bump for the White Sox. Kyle Baradish is on the bump for Baltimore, and Baltimore a sizable favorite here, any between -150 to -162, +129 to a +136. That number on the south side, or 7.5, is the total. Over and under, any between -105 to a -115. And for the White Sox, I would need at least a +150 to be able to take a shot here. If you're looking to lay run half right now with Baltimore, you are finding that as high as a +120, and I would be willing to take a +118 or higher. I did set mine at a +117 for Kyle Bradish. It's been an incredibly small sample size for him over the last few seasons because he has been dealing with a lot of injuries, but the guy has been out there. He has been just absolutely pumping it in there. In his small start sample size last season, 13.2 strikeouts, 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings. Did have a little bit of a rough start last time out for this team, but all in all, I like what I'm seeing out of him. And then for Sean Burke, he did just give up a few too many walks last season. 4.2 walks, 1.5 home runs allowed per 9 innings, a 4.22 ERA, but a 4.92 fielding dependent. So do have to have a lot of question marks there. We'll say the command has been solid through the first two starts of the season. 1 walk in 10 innings, but the White Sox did have to burn up quite a bit of that bullpen yesterday. And it's a bullpen that is supplying well above a 5.5 ERA thus far this season, so it's not like it's necessarily trustworthy to start with. Jordan Nix, he is very long in the twos. Sean Newcomb is a guy that's really not trustworthy whatsoever. Jordan Leisure, you go down the list. I mean, Sir Anthony Dominguez is right now your closer for this team. There's really nobody that I trust in that bullpen right now, but it is a lineup that I think is pretty solid. Edgar Quiroz off to a rough start to the season, but he hit over 270 last season. Colson Montgomery had 20-plus home runs. Alante Benintendi last year, and these two guys are able to do a pretty solid job in terms of move a line. Additionally, Manitaka Murakami, he's got 4 home runs already, although I will say, not really hitting for a lot of average. Chase Meredith, he's been able to do a nice job in terms of finding a way on base, but been a little bit hot and cold with the lineup. Miguel Vargas did have that 6 RBI game, but hasn't done much other than that thus far this season. Meanwhile, on the flip side for the Baltimore Orioles, just haven't gotten a lot out of Pete Alonso thus far. 1 home run, and he's hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. That should be going northward. Gunnar Henderson's been great, 4 home runs, and Taylor Ward was a 30-plus home run guy with the Angels last year. He's yet to hit a home run, but is hitting above a 300. That's actually very encouraging for the team. Ryan Mountcastle, Adley Rushman are doing a pretty solid job moving line. I'd like the pickup of Blaze Alexander, who hit really well for the Diamondbacks. Not much of a home run hitter, but a guy that's able to move line, and it feels like that's the way that the Orioles are built right now. When Pete Alonso is not hitting home runs, when he does hit home runs, they'll have a little bit more power. And for the Orioles, it is a little bit of a suspect bullpen of their own, but Rico Garcia is a solid bullpen piece in my opinion. If they could get Yunier Cano to be what he was a few seasons ago, that would be massive. He was one of the better relievers on all baseball like 3 or 4 years ago. Ryan Helsley looks like he's somewhat back to being the Ryan Helsley that we all know and love. Not as bad as he was with the Mets, probably not as great as he was with the Cardinals, but I do think that the Orioles should be able to go out there, take care of business, and get to Sean Burke. Did semi totally here at an 8.1, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot here on that 7.5 over. And for the Orioles, plus 118 or better, willing to take a shot on the run line. 965, 966. It's the Texas Rangers playing against the Seattle Mariners. Brian Wu says woohoo to another start, and you've got Mackenzie Gore hoping to not get gored. For the Texas Rangers, Rangers do find themselves as underdogs here between -102 to a +105, between -116 to a -126. That number on Seattle, 8 is the total. The unders between -115 to a -120. Overs between even and -105, and I'm seeing a 7.5 out there. Over is -125, unders +105, and for the Mariners, I set them at a -111, and I am starting to see some +105s out there. If you're looking to lay a run half right now with the Seattle Mariners, you're going to be able to find that right around about a +140 to a +150. Personally, I'm going to be in on the Rangers in some form or capacity. I do think that when it's all said and done, we are going to be able to get that +110 number, so waiting on that, but I do think that this is going to be when it's all said and done to play on the Rangers, because with Brian Wu, while he was really good last year, he was still giving up 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, still with a little bit of a pectoral issue towards the back half of the season last year. I have to have a little bit of fear that that might be lingering, though. First 2 starts of the season, only 2 runs allowed over the course of 13 innings, and last year 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but I do think that Mackenzie Gore is going to be able to match up relatively well in this start. For Gore last season, when he was with the Nationals, he was posting up a 4.17 ERA, but closer to 3.74 fielding independent, was only giving up 1.1 home runs per 9 innings, and he was getting 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. I do think that he's going to be in for a really good year, especially with being supported by a Rangers bullpen that, I mean, they entered into Tuesday #1 of the big leagues this season in terms of bullpen ERA. Last year, they were a top 5 team with regards to their bullpen ERA. You've been able to get some good production here year. The likes of Chris Martin, Robert Garcia with a sub-350 ERA. Recognize that Jalen Beeks along with Jacob Junis are not guys that necessarily have the lowest ERAs throughout his career, but for Junis last season, he was posting up about a 2.97 ERA when he was with the Cleveland Guardians. Feels like everyone with Guardians is able to thrive in that bullpen, but all in all, I like what those guys bring to the table. Now the question mark is, can this offense be able to get online? Evan Carter was such a big part of that World Series run a few years ago for the team. He's been off to a little bit of a slow start. It's been a very slow start for Wyatt Langford, just has yet to be able to really find it at the big league level, but I do think that it's coming for him. Corey Seager is looking like the Corey Seager of old, 3 home runs going into yesterday. Jake Berger, a pair of bombs hitting above 300 going into yesterday, and Brandon Nimmo, he's been able to do a nice job setting the table, getting on base towards the top of the lineup. So, they've got a few guys that are thriving, but Jock Peterson, just 2 hits going into yesterday. That's not great. And for the Seattle Mariners, they've really been stuck in neutral with their offense. Luke Raley entered into the day yesterday, leading the team in home runs. He's been solid. And Brandon Donovan hitting above a 300 coming over from the Cardinals. That's been great. But Josh Naylor, Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez, J.P. Crawford, all entered into yesterday, getting a $146 or lower with 1 home run between the 4 of them, and Raleigh got a home run in game number 1 of the series. Randy Arozarena has been able to move the line in. You know that it's coming for the Mariners. They actually led the American League in terms of runs per game away from home last season, but I have to question when that's going to be coming around. And for the Mariners bullpen, they do have Matt Brash, Andres Munoz, perhaps the best 8th and 9th inning duo in all of baseball. Gabe Spire posted up a sub-3 ERA last year. Edward Brazardo, pretty solid, but if I can get past a plus 110 with the Rangers, which I think I should be able to, I'm going to take a shot on them on the money line. Did set my total at 7.7, mostly seeing 8 out there. Going to take that 8 under to go along with the Rangers at a plus 111 or better on the money line. 967, 968 on the card. It's the Yankees. They're going to be playing us to the Athletics. Will Warren is on the bump for the Yankees, and Luis Severino is on the bump for the Athletics. 8.5 is the total. Under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. Between minus 168 to minus 194. That number on the Yankees, plus 142 to a plus 160 is that number on the Athletics. And if you're looking to lay a run half with the New York Yankees, you're going to be finding that in between about a plus 110 to a plus 122 at a plus 108 or better. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the run line. So I'm going to be in on the Yankees on the run line. Now, Luis Severino had some very dramatic home and road splits last season, but you do have to fear that the Yankees having a lot of familiarity with what he's going to be throwing, because he obviously began his career with the New York Yankees. That is going to be nipping him in the bud quite a bit, but you do take a look at what he was able to do away from home last season, and he was able to really mitigate hard contact last season away from home, about 0.7 home runs allowed per 9 innings, 3.02 ERA away from home, 6.01 ERA when he was in Sacramento, so that was not great. And Will Warren just has yet to be able to find it at the big league level. Might be coming this year, though. Last year was getting 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but was giving up 3.6 walks per 9, 4.44 ERA, but a 4.07 fielding independent. And thus far this season, 3 runs allowed in his first 10 innings, so he's looked a little bit better there, has given up a little bit more of the deep ball than what you'd like, but it is a little bit colder out there in the great state of New York right now. That's going to be to his benefit. And for the Athletics, they entered into yesterday averaging fewer than 3 runs per game away from home and over 7 runs per game at home. So some big giant splits there. You've had quite a few of these Athletics hitters just come out of the gate slow. Nick Kurtz is hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Brent Rooker got a home run a few days ago, but he's been struggling a little bit. Jeff McNeil has not necessarily been the signing that they were hoping for. Max Muncy is actually leading the way in terms of average for the team. And Shea Langeliers, Shea has banged for 5 home runs, but really nobody else is coming along for the ride. He's got 5 of the team's 10 home runs entering into yesterday. And for the New York Yankees, they're still a little bit of an all-or-nothing team, but Giancarlo Stanton has done a much better job in terms of hitting for average. You do need a little bit more of the infielders, Jess Islam, Ahmed Rosario, throw in there Ryan McMahon. These guys have been hitting below at 200, so you need a bit more there. But after that bad 0-for-5 start to begin the season for Aaron Judge, he's back online, 3+ home runs. He's starting to hit for average once again. Cody Bellinger has been a nice pickup, and this Yankees bullpen has been absolutely masterful. Even though they no longer have Luke Weaver out there, Camilo Doval, David Benner, they were nice pickups at the trade deadline last season. Fernando Cruz last year gave you a sub-350 ERA. Tim Hill is not necessarily a guy that's gonna just wow you, but I like a 3.09 ERA last year. Brent Hendrick, he's pretty rock solid as well. So I do think that for the Yankees, they do find a way to get the job done, and I do think that the cooler temperatures help you stay under. So somebody told it at 8.4, like the under, and with the Yankees, plus 110 or better, get to take a shot on them on the run line. 969, 970 on the card. It is the Detroit Tigers on the road against the Minnesota Twins. Bailey Ober goes for the Twins, and Framber Valdez goes for Detroit. Detroit is between a minus 150 to a minus 156 favorite, between plus 129 to a plus 135 is that number on Minnesota. 8 is the total. Over is minus 115, the under is minus 105. Seeing an 8.5 out there as well. Under is minus 120, and the over is even. So my total is 7.3. I do like the under for Framber Valdez. The end of the season last year with the Astros Astros was miserable, gave up 4+ runs in 8 out of his last 10 starts. He has wowed with the Tigers thus far, though. In 12 innings, has given up just 2 runs, one of which was earned. And even all of last year, he had a 3.66 ERA, but a 3.37 fielding pennant. He was only giving up 0.7 home runs per 9 innings. It's cooler out there in the Midwest right now, so I think that he's going to be benefiting from that. It is a Minnesota Twins team that if they're going to win games, they're probably going to need to slug their way to victory. Not that the bullpen is awful, but you're not going to be wowed by these guys like Cole Sands, Cody Funderburg, Justin Topa. These are all guys that last year posted up in that neighborhood of like a 4 or so ERA. Now, Anthony Banda, I thought was a nice pickup in the offseason, but it's also a Minnesota Twins team that is a little bit all or nothing. The likes of Matt Wallner, Cody Clements last year gave you 20+ home runs, but they were hitting below a 230. Lucas Shield, he was able to hit above a 300 towards the back half of the season last year. A little bit shaky to start the season, but I think that he's going to get online. Want to talk about shaky? Royce Lewis, Byron Buxton entered into yesterday, both hitting below 200. You know that those guys are going to be able to find it a little bit more, but have to question when the power is going to be coming around because it is so cold out there in Minnesota. And for the Detroit Tigers, just 1 through 9 last year was very balanced. You've had a few guys like Spencer Torkelson, Avi Baez have rough starts to the season along with Riley Green. All 3 of these guys hitting below a 211 going into yesterday with no home runs between the 3 of them. But Dylan Dingler has done a nice job finding a way on base. Cole Keith not going to provide a lot of power, but he gets on base along with Kevin McGonigal. And I do think that for the Tigers, who they were a pretty pedestrian bullpen last season, they've had a little bit of a rough go of it thus far this season, that they get back to that 2024 form when they were doing bullpen madness. Likes of Tyler Holton, Brent Herter, Will Vest all provided a sub-350 ERA last season. Now, don't trust in Kenley Jansen whatsoever, but I do like what Kyle Finnegan is able to bring to the table. And when it comes to Bailey Ober, he posted up a 5.10 ERA last year with about 1.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings. I do think that improves a little bit. His 7.7 or so strikeouts per 9 innings last year was a career low. I think that he's going to be able to find it a little bit more here. So my total is 7.3, like the under. With the Tigers, I set their money line price at a -141 right now. If you're looking to lay a run half with them, you're going to be finding that in that neighborhood about a +115 or so. I'm already now seeing a +110. Personally, if I can get a run half with a +130 or better on the Twins, and right now I am mostly seeing about -130, -135 on the Twins, I would rather take a run half with Minnesota rather than lay the chalkier money line for Detroit, because I do think that this is going to be a very low scoring game. So my total is 7.3, like the under, and at -130 or better, going to be willing to take a run half here with the Minnesota Twins. 971, 972. The Brewers are going to be on the road against the Boston Red Sox as Sonny Gray hopes to be sunny for Boston, and Chad Patrick goes for Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a underdog here of anywhere between +113 to a +120, -135 to -142. That number on Boston, 7.5 is the total. Under is -115, and the over is -105. For Milwaukee, I did set them at a +147, so I'm going to be willing to lay up to a -146 with the Boston Red Sox. Now, I will say, for Sonny Gray, man, things were not sunny for him towards the back half of the season last year, posting up a 5.45 ERA after the All-Star break last season, was giving up 1.9 home runs per 9 innings, had a rough first start against the Cincinnati Reds, looked a little bit better in start number 2, and for Chad Patrick, he had a rough second half of the season last season as well. Overall, had a 3.53 ERA with a 3.53 fielding dependent, 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but was also giving up about 3 walks per 9 innings. It is going to be a little bit cooler out there in Boston, but I do think that the Red Sox are going to be able to find a little bit more offense. Weiler Abreu's wild out for 3+ home runs already this season. He's hitting well above a 350. You've been able to get some relatively okay production out of Cedon Rafael towards the bottom of the lineup as well. Roman Anthony doesn't provide a ton of power, but he moves the line. Wilson Contreras, he's a little bit down with his power, but again, he's been able to find a way on base as well. And then for the Brewers, they are dealing with quite a few injuries. Going to be without for quite a bit of time Jackson Chourio, so that hurts them. But you've had David Hamilton, the former Red Sox, do a nice job finding a way on. Sal Frelick is a good base stealer, along with Bryce Terang. Neither of these guys just like earth-shattering power or anything like that, but they find a way on. Brandon Lockridge is actually hitting above a 300 as well. And I mean, really, outside of William Contreras and Christian Yelich, who both give you 20+ home runs, those are like the lone 2 guys that are healthy that I think are going to give you a lot of power, but I mean, they do find a way to be able to move the line. 5th in the big leagues in terms of runs per game last year, despite being 25th in terms of home runs out of per at-bat basis, and it is a Brewers bullpen that last year was in the top 8 with regards to ERA. Aaron Ashby, Ebner Uribe, Trevor McGill, all a sub-325 ERA last year. Now they are dealing with an injury to Jared Koenig, but They picked up on El Zerpa from the Kansas City Royals during the offseason. He's able to give you good length. And for the Red Sox, this team was second in terms of bullpen ERA last year, even with Justin Slayton not necessarily having the world's greatest year. Greg Weiser, Garrett Whitlock, Aroldis Chapman, they're able to give you a sub-325 ERA. They could pick up Danny Columbo, who was pretty solid with the Orioles along with the Rangers last season as well. So do think that Sonny Gray gives you a relatively good start. And I do think that both Patrick and Gray do give up a few runs here. I think that's a lot of small ball in this game. Semi-total at 8.1, like the over. And for the Red Sox, willing to lay up to a minus 146 on the money line. 973, 974, the Blue Jays play host the LA Dodgers. Shohei Ohtani is on the bump for the Dodgers, and one Mr. Dylan Cease is going to be going for the Blue Jays, and Jays who find themselves as a underdog here of anywhere between plus 128 to a plus 135, minus 152 to a minus 163. That number on the Dodgers. 7.5 is the total. Over and under are both at minus 110, and when it comes to the Blue Jays, I was willing to take anything of a plus 140 or greater on that money line. Right now, mostly seeing plus 135, but when the dime lines come out, we should be able to get a plus 140, and I will be willing to take a shot there. Now, I recognize that things have been less than tremendous for the Blue Jays here over the last week, really ever since that road trip that they took to the Chicago White Sox, but Cease looks like he's got his good stuff going once again this season, as Cease in his first few starts of the season was able to do a really nice job in terms of being able to get swings and misses and being able to keep teams just offline in general. Did have a unearned run given up in one of his starts, but still, right now he has been able to get you 18 strikeouts in 9 2/3 innings after last year. 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Did have that 4.55 ERA last season, but a 3.56 fielding dependent shows how unlucky he was. And everyone loves Shohei Ohtani, the hitter, but Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher last year, was so good as well. 2.87 ERA with a 1.90 fielding dependent. He was giving up 0.6 home runs per 9 innings, 12 strikeouts, and 1.7 walks per 9, and he was able to show some relatively good length in his first start of the season here this year. And he's backed up by a bullpen that is one of the best in all of baseball. Jack Dreher, Alex Vesey had sub-325 ERAs last season. Blake Tryon and Tanner Scott are coming off of rough seasons. I think that they're going to pick it up a little bit. You get Edwin Diaz at the closer spot, and for the Dodgers, it is very much the best lineup that money can buy. Andy Paz, already 3+ home runs, hitting above a 400, just absolutely insane what we've been seeing there. Max Muncy, when he's been in the lineup last year, he was able to provide more than a run per game more when he was in versus when he was out. Pick up Kyle Tucker in the offseason. He and Will Smith are going to get jiggy with it with 20+ home runs and over a 350 on base. Teoscar Hernandez has been able to hit for a lot of power thus far. And for the Blue Jays, it's been a team that's been stuck in neutral, with Flagler Jr. having just one home run through the first 10 games of the season. Dalton Varsho last year, a home run every about 12 or so at bats. He's been down. Andres Gimenez is off to a relatively nice start along with Ernie Clements, and I did like the pickup of Kazuma Okamoto. He's been able to give you a pair of home runs. He's been able to do a solid job moving the line, but for the Blue Jays, this is a bullpen that has been very, very suspect here this season. Jeff Hoffman, he was not good during the regular season, had a better postseason, but it's really hard to be able to rely upon him. I like the pickup of Tyler Rogers, and Louis Varland is a guy that I liked when they picked him up as well, but you've had Braden Fisher just have a relatively rough start to the season, but not as bad as Brandon Little. He's been coming up very little for the team. Do like Mason Fluharty in the bullpen, but he's had a little bit of a rough start to the season as well. They're dealing with injuries, the likes of Shane Bieber, Trey Savage, so it is a little bit of a ragtag bunch, but I think that Dylan Cease going to be able to go out there, give you a relatively good start, and I do think that for Ohtani, they're going to limit his innings here to begin the season. I think that helps out the Blue Jays, so at a plus 140 or better, looking at that Blue Jays money line, I did set my total at 7.7, so at the 7.5, also went on the over. 975, 976, it is the Astros. They are going to be on the road against the Colorado Rockies. Michael Lorenzen goes for Colorado. Christian Javier is on the bump for the Astros. This total will open up at a 12.5. Now we're down to in a lot of places the 11.5 with the under between minus 110 to a minus 120. Over is between even to minus 110. Seeing one straight 12 out there. That under is minus 120. Over is even for the Astros between minus 154 to a minus 168. Is that number there? Plus 130 to plus 140 on the Colorado Rockies. And if you're looking to lay a run half with the Astros, that's between minus 105 to even money. And I'm going to be willing to do so. I was willing to lay up to a minus 125. Now for Christian Javier, you'll look at the 48 starts that he's had between the 2023 and 2026 seasons. He's posting up over a 4.5 ERA. Swing and miss stuff has been way down. He give it up 1.3 home runs, 3.9 walks per 9 innings. He's looking to get back to that 2022 form. That season, he was getting about 11.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, 2.54 ERA. Absolutely rocking and rolling. I don't know if he ever quite gets back there, but I do think that'll look a little bit more like himself this season. And for Michael Lorenzen, was not amazing with the Royals last season, posting up a 4.64 ERA, 4.59 fielding, dependent about 1.6 home runs per 9 innings, but 8.1 strikeouts, 2.5 walks per 9 innings, and obviously Coors Field, it very much elevates offense, but I mean, it's a little bit cooler out there this time of year, so the ballpark factor isn't quite as extreme as you're going to be finding a little bit more towards the back half of the season. And when it comes to this Colorado Rockies lineup, typically the team hits for an on-base percentage about 80 points better at home rather than away from home. You've been able to have a few guys really step up. TJ Romfield along Troy Johnson. Both of these guys entered into yesterday hitting above 300. Johnson has hit a fair home runs as well. They pick up Edouard Julien in the offseason. I think that's big. Mickey Moniak has been able to pan out for this team. And then Hunter Goodman, 25 plus home runs last season. He's a guy that I really like for the Houston Astros. This has been a team that's been absolutely clobbering the ball thus far, as you've got Yordan Alvarez and Jose Altuve looking like they're in peak form. Both guys were hitting above a 350 going into yesterday. A combined 6 home runs between the two of them. Jeremy Pena right now hitting for not a ton of power, but he's doing a good job moving line. Christian Walker is starting to live up to that billing as well. He was rough in his first season with the Astros, hitting for above 300. He's been able to give you a few home runs thus far this season. Do have to have some question marks with regards to this bullpen though, because they are dealing with a few injuries. Josh Hader being on the injured list along with having Bennett Sosa being out, that hurts, but Steven Okra at the Bryants, Brian King, Brian Abreu, these guys were all able to give you sub 350 ERA last season. And AJ Blubaugh, he's been a really good long guy for this team as well. And then for the Colorado Rockies, entering into the day on Tuesday, a 291 bullpen ERA, top 10 in the big leagues. You actually have quite a few guys like a Juan Mejia, Jimmy Erga, Victor Vodnik that were able to supply a 4.25 ERA last season. I like the pickup of Brendan Bernardino for this team, so I actually do think that this is going to be a little bit of a lower scoring game, and I do think that we get a little bit of a better year out of Christian Javier. So I did set my total here at a 10.7. I'm going to be in on the under, and with the Astros willing to lay up to a minus 125 on that run line. 977, 978. The Atlanta Braves are on the road against the LA Angels. Reed Detmers goes for the Halos, and Grant Holmes goes for the Atlanta Braves. The Braves are between minus 118 to minus 131 favorites, even money to plus 110. That number on the Halos, 8.5 is a total, over and under both at minus 110. And when it comes to the Atlanta Braves, set them at a minus 127 on the money line, so willing to go up to a minus 126 here for Grant Holmes. As good swing and miss stuff, was able to get a little bit over 9 strikeouts per 9 innings last year. What really was dooming him was the walks. He was giving up over 4 walks per 9 innings. I think a little bit of that was inconsistency from going from being a long guy to being a starter. He finally was able to get consistent starts last season, so I think that he's going to take off a little bit more this season. And for Reed Detmers, he was really good coming out of the bullpen last season. His swing and miss stuff was very much up, 3.96 ERA, but closer to 3.12 fielding independent with about 11.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, was giving up less than a home run per 9 innings. But you just take a look at him in the role of a starter, and it is a little bit of a different animal being a starter rather than coming out of the bullpen, and he just hasn't necessarily been the same guy. A career 3.96 ERA coming out of the bullpen with 11.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. In the role of a starter, 9.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, 4.83 ERA, and for his career as a starter, giving up over 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. And the Atlanta Braves, are they ever going to be back to averaging 5.75 runs per game, much like they did back in 2023? Probably not, but I do think that these guys are starting to be back in full force, and Ronald Acuna Jr. hasn't even really gotten it going yet. Entered into yesterday below the middle line of 200 with 0 home runs, but I mean, Drake Baldwin, 5 home runs, hitting above a 300 entering into yesterday. Ozzie Albies, Matt Olson, pair of bombs, hitting above 275. Mauricio Dubon has been a really nice find for this team, so I like what they're doing there. Ori Mateo, there might be a little bit of upside there as well. And then on the flip side for the LA Angels, very much an all-or-nothing team last year, 4th in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per-at-bat basis, bottom 5 in terms of on-base percentage, and it looks like Yohan Moncada is just washed. Josh Lowe has not really hit well to begin the season. I feel like he's going to be able to turn it around. Zach Neto and Nolan Schunel, these are guys that can give you 20-plus home runs, move the line a little bit, and even Mike Trout last year was only hitting about a 240. I think that that's going to be a little bit more consistent this year, and I will say this for the Angels. Bullpen has been much better this year than it has been in the past. Bringing in some of these veterans like Brent Suter along with Drew Pomeranz have really been able to help. Now, I still don't have a lot of faith in someone like a Ryan Zephyrian, who was all sorts of brutal in that bullpen 8 seasons ago, but it does feel like it's a little bit better for this team, so it does lead to a little bit of an interesting circumstance here, because with the Atlanta Braves, if Horacio Iglesias is able to find it, this bullpen is going to be rock solid because they signed Robert Suarez in the offseason. He was always a good, reliable closer for the San Diego Padres. He's serving a little bit more in that 8th inning role right now for them. time. Tyler Kinley, ever since they brought him on over from the Rockies, he's been able to supply a sub-250 ERA with the Atlanta Braves. Dylan Lee has been relatively presentable as well. So in this circumstance, I do think that the Atlanta Braves find a way to get the job done. Willing to lay up to a minus 126 on the money line. And Demers, I think, might struggle a little bit as a starter, but did set a 12 and 8.4. Do like that 8.5 to the under and wrap things up with 979, 980. The Cubs are going to be on the road against the Rays. Joe Boyle, oh Boyle rules, is on the bump for the Rays, and Colin Ray says hip hip hooray to another start. This is a relative pick'em game. This was a bit of a surprise start for the Cubs because they had to have Cade Horton at the injured list, but right now between minus 108 to minus 110 is the number on both of these teams. Total is 7.5. The over is minus 120, and the under is even. Seeing an 8 out there on the 8. Under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105. And for the Cubs, I did set them at a minus 106. When we get those dime minus 105 lines, if you get a pick'em just like we're seeing right now, I would be willing to lay up to a minus 105 with the Cubs on the money line. And for Colin Ray, this is not a guy that's going to like blow you away, give you a whole bunch of strikeouts or anything like that, but he was presentable for the Cubs last season. Last season, he was posting up an ERA that was more in the neighborhood about a 3.95 for 11 fielding dependent, 1.1 home runs, 2.5 walks per 9 innings. And Joe Boyle is sort of the opposite. He was getting 10 strikeouts per 9 innings with the Rays last season, but was also giving up 4.8 walks per 9 innings, 4.67 ERA compared to a 4.19 fielding dependent. Looks solid here in his first 2 starts of the season. 11 and a third innings, 5 runs, 4 of which were earned, 3 walks allowed, hasn't really given up the deep ball, so that's good. But the reason why I did have to set the Cubs as a slight favorite here is that I just am not in on this Rays bullpen whatsoever. Like, man, when you've got Griffin Jacks trying to close out games, he is getting all sorts of jacked up as of right now. Kevin Kelly has not looked good to begin the season. Brian Baker, Cole Sulzer, who they acquired from the Orioles a while back, they've been a little bit of an issue. Hunter Biggie has been okay. That's about the only guy in the bullpen that's been trustworthy, and they had to start Mason Englert yesterday because they had a paternity list situation for Drew Rasmussen. So, hey, congratulations to him, but man, it's a bullpen that's not necessarily trustworthy. We'll say, though, the Rays lineup is pretty rock solid. You had Junior Caminero last year, hit for 44 home runs. He's been a little bit cold with regards to home run ball this far this season, but he's done a solid job finding way on base. Jonathan Aranda last year hit well above a 300 with some functional power. Yandy Diaz is giving you well above a 425 on base to begin the season. Last year, he provided 366 on base, over a 300 average, and he was able to slug out 25 home runs, so love what he brings to the table. Chandler Simpson has done a great job moving the line, getting on base. He's one of the better base stealers in all baseball. And finally, they have a good hitting catcher in Nick Fortes, and on the Cubs side of things, they had a really nice start to the season last year with their offense. Then it went all just horribly wrong. It's been up and down for them to begin the season, but you do have Ian Happ, who's already been able to give you 4 home runs. Moises Ballesteros, Dansby Swanson, Michael Conforto hitting below 200. You need these guys to pick it up. And Alex Bregman has had a little bit of a cold start to the season. We've seen Bregman have a lot of cold starts to begin seasons, but did have a 3-8 game yesterday. Perhaps that gets him going. Nico Horner has done a great job moving the line. You need Michael Busch to be the guy that he was a season ago, as the power just has been lacking a little bit right now outside of Ian Happ for the Cubs, but I do think that they are going to be able to find it sooner rather than later. And for the Cubs, they did lose much of that bullpen from a season ago as well, so I do think that that's a bit of an issue because Caleb Theobar is one of the main guys that returns from a season ago, but he's 37 plus years old after a career year. Don't know if he'll be able to duplicate that. Daniel Palencia has sub-3 ERA, but Phil Matone was posting up over a 4 ERA last season. Hobie Milner, he wasn't necessarily great with the Texas Rangers, supplying a 3.84 ERA. Really, the last 2 seasons have not necessarily been amazing for him either, but I do think that Colin Ray goes out there, gives you a relatively nice start, so did set the Cubs to where I'm willing to lay up to minus 105 on that money line, and semi total 7.9. Right now seeing 7.5s to 8s. Personally, I would rather have a 7.5 over rather than an 8 under to go along the Cubs up to a minus 105 on that money line, and that'll wrap things up for the Wednesday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Matt Josephs, aka Mid-Major Matt, for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have 1 or 2 ways we all fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter. So per usual, please send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. I'm with you guys every single day, give you picks and analysis on every single game, every single day. So I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Take care.